All right, so today I wanted to continue on with this map tile library that we installed last week that uses these broken up images in rows and columns, and as you get more and more detailed, it loads those as appropriate, which is pretty cool. So we're going to change this and create a tile view along with a navigation spinner. So a drop-down box we're going to have at the top of our view, and then as we select a particular building for the campus, it will scroll the tile view to show that building in place. So that's the first concept I want to get across today. Hopefully we'll get to that point. So to do that, the inventor of the tile view is not a big fan of loading layouts from XML, so he doesn't really support that. And I spent a couple hours trying to get that to work and couldn't. So what we have to do is create our own layout programmatically from the Android SDK that we have here. So I need to have a variable called linear layout. I'm going to call it linear layout. So that's my variable. I'm going to create a new linear layout, and then I can add some stuff and set some properties. Rather than doing it in the XML, I can do it straight programmatically. So I need to set the layout, linear layout dot set orientation. Since it's a linear layout, I have to tell it whether it's vertical or horizontal. And you would do this in the viewer instead. You know, when you're dealing with your layouts in the XML, you would do that by setting a property. So we're going to call linear layout dot vertical, and then we're going to tell our activity to use this. Instead of a resource ID, we're going to use this new linear layout that we just created. So that basically does the same thing as calling set content view with the resource ID of the XML. Right? So now we've got a linear layout. Then I need to create manually a spinner that I'm going to use for navigation in my map. So I'm going to say my building spinner is a new spinner from this context, and then I need a variable to store that in. Spinner, building spinner. All right. Then I need to load that. I need to set the parameters of this spinner layout and then add it to my layout. So it's the same thing as if I was inside of my map here and I drug in place a spinner. That's doing a lot of things for me automatically. I'm having to create the layout, create some properties, and then add it to the view. So I'm going to call linear layout dot layout params. We're going to set some params. I mean, create a variable called with that as a type, spinner view layout, and we're going to create a new linear layout dot layout params, which is interesting. And this is where we set some of those properties that you would set in the XML directly. Let's see, linear layout dot match dot match parent, and I want to set, I'll do it on another line, linear layout dot layout params dot wrap content. Okay, so I'm setting two two values for my spinner view layout, and then I need to add that to my linear layout. So my linear layout, I can call this method called add view, and I tell it what I'm going to add. I'm going to add my building spinner with some specific layout information, and a lot of programming just to add a spinner to this layout. So I added the spinner first, and then I can go through and create my tile view. In a linear layout, it goes by order of addition. So my spinner now should be at the top of my linear layout. Then everything else will be laid out underneath that. So when I add my tile view, I can just add that to my linear layout. Instead of calling the set content view, I'm going to call linear layout dot add view. We're going to add our tile view that we created and our tile view layout, which I haven't created yet, tile view layout, which sets some of those parameters that I need. So I need that as well. So that is let's see, let's do it down here. So I need to create, similar to this, I'm going to create that type of information as a tile view layout. And so we'll call this tile view layout. And we're going to set match parent, put it on its own line, match parent, and the other two are the height and weight. So 0 means to take up the whole width, and 1 is, I don't remember, I think top. So that's setting some parameters in the tile view, and I use that to create my view, and then I can go on and display that. So let's do that much and see what I got. All right, so here we go. I can go to my map. And now I have a spinner at the top. See, this control is now here, and the rest of my map is underneath it. So I've added a nice control that I could use. Theoretically, what I want to do is scroll down and select building 1 from the spinner, and it's going to come down here and zoom in to the right place and center my building 1 here. That's what I want to have happen. All right, any questions on that so far? All right, so I need to add in my initialize app here, I need to create the data that goes in my spinner. So I need an array which is used for my building array, and I'm going to have it a string array, and I'm going to call it building array. So in my initialize app, I'm going to set that. And I'm going to show you how I'll show you initially how to get it from a resource. and I need to have that in some resource that I can get. So I do that in my strings XML file, just to show you some concepts here. And we won't actually use this, but in my strings, where's my strings? Sorry, my values. I'm going to add a new resource that I'm going to call string array. We're going to call it buildings. And it's going to have some items that I'm going to have building 1. I'm going to have an item of building 15 and an item of building 50. All right, so that's an array of strings that's reading from the resources array. Why would I put it in resources like this? That's where I put all my strings, but why do I put them there? Localization, right? So I theoretically would have to do that in here, but in Spanish. So I'd have whatever building uno is and whatever, whatever. One is not going to change, but building would. So I'd localize that string array in my Spanish array here. Building uno. All right, so I have. So something's wrong with my string array. Thanks, yes. What is wrong with that? Oh. In here, I can't say get string. I say get resources dot get string array. There we go. All right, so now when I run it, come on. There we go. All right, so now when I run it, I have a beautiful, look at that, it's not working. A non-working spinner. So all I did was I read it into an array, but I didn't tell my spinner to use that, which you have to create this array adapter. So I have to create this array adapter. A new array adapter with this as the context. And then simple spinner item. Jeez. And then the array of building of strings that I'm going to pass into that. Okay, let's put this on different lines here. All right, so I have to create this array adapter, and then I have to tell it, my spinner, to use that So I tell my building spinner to set the adapter to my spinning array adapter. Very painful. Okay. And then later, if I were to actually use this, I need to have a method that's going to activate whenever they select that. So we'll add that later. I just want to make sure that you see how to read those data from an XML file instead. There we go. So we're back. Now I've got building 1, 15, 50. So when I select this now, there's an on-click type of activity that I need to supply that does some code when that happens, right? So when they select that, I need to do something. So we can create that. And we have to create the set on item selected listener. On item selected listener is what I want. And we're going to have a new adapter view. These are just painful. On item selected listener. And that creates that automatically by IntelliJ filled in this code for me. Isn't that nice? So they know I have to supply these two methods. And this one I don't really need right now because on nothing selected, it doesn't make sense to me, first of all. If you don't select anything, why would you have to have that? But anyway, maybe if they select the same thing that was selected. Maybe, possibly, yeah. I haven't researched that one yet. So we get all this information from whenever they select it. So we have to. I'm going to do something like. Oh, they had them different. This is parent. Get selected item. And I got an error. Get selected. I don't want item. I'm going to use item position. And then maybe something like, we'll toast it and just print out something. You have selected item number. All right, so let's just do that much for now. All right, so now when they select something like building 15, it says you've selected item number 1. This one says you've selected item number 0. So you can get the item number and use that in your source to do something with. But what type of information do I really need when they select this building? It's coordinates, right? I need a little more than just what they selected. I need an X and Y coordinates. And that's a little bit tough to put into a single array, right? A single array, my array string can only have one item in it, which is the name of the building. So how could I make this so that it gives me more information when they select it? Instead of just a string, what could I use an array of? An array of arrays, okay, maybe. What else? What's a better way? If I need multiple things to store per item, what would I use for something like that? A hash, okay. In Ruby, I would use a hash, maybe. Don't really have that in Java. No. No. You guys aren't thinking object-oriented enough. Multiple things into an array. So one position gives me multiple information pieces out. An array of objects. Thank you, David. He's not even in the class. That's great. An array of objects. So I might create a class called buildings. And in that buildings class, I can create the name of the building, its coordinates, that it's got X and Y coordinates, and some other information that I might need. And then I could use, instead of reading in just an array of strings, I can build those objects programmatically in here. So to do that, I first need a building object. So I need a new class, and we're going to call it, let's see, I called mine building, I think, pretty generic. So it's going to be a building class. That's Spanish, building. I don't know what building is. Now you're going to make me go look it up. Translate building to Spanish. Edificio. So it's edificio. There you go. Edificio uno. So I need a class. I'm going to have some public variables. I know this is not the right way to go. You would have getters and setters for these instead of making them public. But too bad. This is easier to code since we have to write it all ourselves. It's not Ruby. We need a constructor that's going to take the name of the building, the X and the Y of the building. So it's coordinate system. And then I'm going to store those. And name equals. Okay, so I'm storing my three people, three pieces of information, and then I'm going to have just I'm going to make a two-string method.
I thought they were going to hide it so we can't see other people's code.
Sorry?
I thought they were going to hide it on here so we can't see other people's projects.
They're supposed to. There might be some leftover stuff.
So I was going to ask you, if it's okay to delete that leftover stuff?
Yeah, you should be able to, yeah. Yeah, delete it. They shouldn't be using it anyway, so. Don't delete something in somebody else's profile. All right, so I'm going to have a little two-string which will return the building name and then its coordinates, which might be useful for debugging. Okay, so I'm going to have a little method here, two-string. All right, so I've got my building object class, and now in my tile, map tile, instead of getting them from the resources here, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to create these dynamically. So this building array, and of course you could store these in a file, but this is easier for now. I'm going to create a new building array, an array of building objects is what this is. And it's going to have some information. I'm going to create a new building object. I'm going to call it building 1. And it's going to be at 1393 and 2769. And I'm going to have a new building of building 15. And happens to be, let's make it up, 852 and 1448. How did you get this? Well, no, I figured it out. So I'll show you how I figured it out in a minute. But so then we have building 50, and we have 600 by 400. And so that creates an array of building objects. And the spinner the only thing, I can just set this Arrayadapter. The building object has to respond to a toString method because the spinner object calls the toString method of that particular object. So it will use that object, that toString, as the title of the spinner dropdown. Everybody see that? Does that make sense? So then instead of on item selected, I want to call, no. Wait. No, that's right. That's right. So it's all good except that here I don't care about the position. I want the actual object that I'm going to get back. Get selected item, and that's going to be of type what? Building. Very good. So I'm going to get a building. I'm going to store it in building as a building object, and I'll call it B. All right. So my building object is here. I can call this as b.toString, and that will print that out. Let's just see if that works so far. Apparently, yeah.
So either he's unwilling to change, or is Android changing ahead of the curve?
I don't know. I can't imagine them going away from an XML view builder, and it's just so much easier. So he doesn't like. He says on his site that he's open to somebody doing a change themselves and telling him what the code is, but he doesn't want to do it. So now this is the toString. Remember, it showed the coordinates, and I can select building 1. It said I'm in building number 1, 1393. That's its coordinates. So now I need to do something based on that information, right? So instead of just saying toast it, let's call a new method that I'm going to call position map, and I'm going to pass it my building object. All right. So I need a new method, position map, and it takes a building object, which we'll call B. Nice variable name. Any questions on this so far? All right, so all I have to use is the tile view object, and I can call some nice methods that he's created. I'm going to call slide to center, and I'm going to pass it the x coordinates and the y coordinates of my building that comes from my building object. Isn't that sweet? And then I can call the scale. I can tell it to scale it to the one float that's it, which is the biggest, the most zoomed in level of my detail level. All right, isn't that nice? So my little position map, all it has to know is information that's in the building itself already. So I can say, okay, let's run that guy. Okay, so we're back running. So now I can select building 15, and building 15 zooms in. I can select building 50, goes back to building 50. I can go to building 1, zooms into building 1. Isn't that beautiful? That's just sweet stuff. Now if I flip it, I think it'll look, oops, I didn't flip it. I think this one works better on this level. So I can select. Now, the problem with this, and this may have something to do with nothing selected. I'm on building 1. I select building 1. It doesn't do anything. It's not calling that I changed something. So I have to go to a different building, which is 15. That's perfect. And then I can go back to building 50. I can go back to building 1. All right? So I don't know. You could select building, sure, that would work. It seems like, though, I want to try this. I'll put the same code in here, and see if it positions back. I just got to try it. This is live coding here. All right, so let's try this. So nothing selected. No, it didn't work. That's not actually going somewhere. So a moot problem there. All right, but that's pretty cool. Slides to the building. So that's a start. Now I want to do some things. I can add some markers at these places so that when I click on the marker, I can do some action. The tile view already has some listeners callbacks that I can write. And I want to do, when they click on building 1, and they scroll to it first, and then they click on building 1, I want it to load an entire new tiled map, which is the internals of building 1, the internal rooms of building 1. And I have that working. It works pretty well. It's pretty cool. So we'll do that tomorrow. We're out of time today. Any questions on what we've done so far? And I'll show you tomorrow how I figured out what the position was. It has to do with this listener here. So, oops. Actually, we could do that. I have it. I don't see it now. I could print out the X and Y here. Whenever they click on something, but I want to do that not on a marker. I want to do that on a just on a tap, and so I have to override this tap method. So we'll do that tomorrow. We're out of time today. Any other questions? That's sweet stuff.
Good job, Dave.
Thank you, David.